So this is the sequel for Amayui Castle Meister, and it can be a mixed bag for some people, and that's dependent if you'd rather have just more of the same or if you enjoy the new theme they're going for, because this one doesn't really have the same magic as the last one. The crafting things for random people is gone, the monster capture system to upgrade your spirits is gone, crafting in itself feels more grindy in the sense that you have to grind for a lot of money later on to like refine your gear. Funny enough, I think you don't even have that much choice for gear. You're basically stuck with like what you have from chapter 1 all the way to chapter 4. And I think you'd even be doing like halfway through chapter 4 because you still need like this material from like a map that shows up later on for like these specific minerals that you need. Technically, you can also craft for like some magic shit now, except I never use the system outside of the basic ones you can buy from the shop. Because why would I want to use 18 MP instead of 5 just because you have like an extra plus 10 int? Sure, you can just spam MP potions, nothing is stopping you, but it's like if Agi dying from like Persona is only like 20% stronger than Agi. It's like, why the fuck would I want to do that? I think there was also a spell that would recover like 1000 HP, and I think my most tanky character didn't even reach 300. It's like, damn, how much farming do you guys do for this? It does have this new thing where you collect these like Genma stones that act as like passive points, and it's like this grid system, and you have to set your path to the passives that you want. They're scattered around the maps, and I don't think there's enough to fill the whole grid, but I might have just missed a few. It doesn't really matter because you can skip most of it, and it wouldn't really affect you in gameplay wise. Like early on, the ones that give you like hit / like accuracy are the better ones, and then you just go for like HP and evasion. There are some that are specific to elements, so you can raise like your fire magic and lower like fire magic resistance to the enemies or whatever, but I find them rather pointless when you can just use those points to raise your magic points anyway, since that applies to like all spells. But on a technical sense, the element stats do give a better return eventually, but you would have already finished the game before that actually happens. You basically have to set to like New Game Plus, raise your level cap, and feed the specific unit like a large amount of Mercury gems to the point that the character would have like 150 to 200 int. A long ass tangent aside, it's not worth it for the normal player. It's like, why would you even do that? Another new thing is like this union concept where you can slap one character with a different character as like a support. So the largest difference is they give you like a combo move, and some of them provide like an extra tile of range, and that's useful. There's also some stat boosts as well, but the main bonus is to equip them with like either some gear that can block damage for the main unit, or they give like supplementary damage. There are other uses. You can swap who's the main, so you can have like a tank with a glass canyon. So once the glass canyon finished attacking, you swap to the tank character. It's like, alright, at least my glass canyon's not gonna die the next round. The issue is that the combo skills and some of the stats are character dependent, so only a few combos actually work. Like Avaro is the main character, right? The whole group likes them. Only 3 of them can actually be used as like a real union, and then add like a 2 other ones for like New Game Plus. And what's fun is one of those 3 should never be comboed with them because they have like the same skill set that's used for like materials and grinding and movement, right? It's like, why would you combo these 2? They're the same damn thing. And that's kind of a recurring issue. A lot of units have like strict units, like Rosaline, it's a mage, and all of her units are all like long range units, and most of them are mages as well. So either you sacrifice your range or you sacrifice any chance of using any tanky character along to like block shots. I'm making a larger issue than it actually is. It's rather rare that Rosaline is ever in like melee range. Sure, you can use like the melee magic move, and even that like is enough to like handle anything that happens for her. So it's whatever. And the last thing is, instead of capturing monsters to sacrifice to like increase your spirit's stats, right, it's just a random side quest to capture monsters, so now you can use them as party members. But they don't really learn new skills, and most of them never get to learn double action, and that's like the passive that lets you act twice per turn. So they're basically perma-benched and used more for like hscenes than anything else. Technically, they don't have like a stat cap, I think, so they can go pretty high if you use like a lot of money to go to the shop to like apply this like stat attribute increase buff alongside the accessories that also boost like the same stat up, right? So in that case, like they could be one of the strongest units in your game, but again, only one of them has like double action, so it's mostly useless. So it's like, yeah, cool, like you have 25% more stats than the rest of the team, maybe, but you only have 1 turn, so it's like, dude, you suck. It doesn't really matter. And then alongside that, it's like you already have a huge amount of characters to use anyway, and there's a limit to how many you can use, so it's better to just have like a random, not random, but like a good static team of here instead of just using these monsters for no reason when they're eventually going to be worse anyway. I tried leveling 2 up to see like if I get any extra scenes, and I don't, and that's kind of sad. It's also fucked up that none of them have like the union with Apado, so instead you have like a middle ground union where if the character and the monster has like the same element, then you gain some extra stats and like a traversal ability that you have no use for, because by that time you have either the boots to help you or the accessory to help you with that. It's very useless. I don't even know why they thought that'd be a thing. So anyways, the first title is about your fortress, Fia, and bonds. Use the bonds to power up the fortress, so you can get to new locations to craft more shit, to do more freaking bonds, and all of that is to get Fia to this location that she wants to go. A lot of stuff gets in your way, past enemies become friends, and the game gets more merry the further you go. It's easygoing and fun, but a lot of what it was about was like Avado and the world building. You get to learn about what Avado's about, you keep on crafting stuff, and you learn secrets of the land that were hidden on purpose. And that's kind of the case with the sequel, but it's no longer about Avado, and there's no real destination this time. The game felt something in like this other region, and they went there to investigate because like, hey, it could be something from this like human seal shit from the first game. I forgot if they actually mentioned it or if it's like it was just a hunch, and I believe it was just a hunch, like it could be them, so let's check it out. Because even then it's like I believe the fort or the fort spirit also like, hey, I felt something over there. It's like, oh, it must be them. Anyways, they go to the new land, their power structure is different, and it's 100% on magic, to the point that the basic magic was now commercialized and you could just buy like fireball or ice or lightning, whatever, right? And it's crap like that, it's fine. They get permission to go into the labyrinths to see if anything funky is happening, and of course there was. So the plot is about going through these labyrinths, find past friends along the way, and eventually fight the same faction from the last game. None of this is spoilers, it's like in the first hour or two of the game, and this is like an 80-hour game if you skip most of the grind. If you want to refine like most of your weapons, good luck, because I think it'll be like maybe 120 hours, maybe 140, it's like holy shit. You don't really need to do that. There's like some ultimate weapons or whatever, like the final weapons you can use in New Game Plus, but honestly the last weapons you can get from the first game or the first run is good enough. It'll work. So like I said before, it's really no longer about Avado. He and him are still the central characters, but it's more about like Kuna now. Kuna is the spirit of the fortress, and Fia considers Kuna her child, so it's now about family and getting Kuna to experience a lot of different mindsets and like colorful personalities from the large group that Avado already got from the first game. The easiest way to explain it is like if the first one is about Naruto and this one is like, hey, this is about Himawari exploring with Naruto and his family, only for all of his friends to show up here and there, and Himawari has to stick around because she has some special sealing power and it's needed for this mission. But you know, like, hey, halfway around it's like, hey, this is Shino, cool, oh, here's Kiba, awesome. It's like, and then there's like an episode Kiba is that kind of thing, right? But for like 80% of the time, it's just good vibes. I forgot to clarify, Himawari is like one of Naruto's kids in Boruto. I haven't watched much of Boruto, I don't really care, but Crunchyroll put a lot of these like Himawari clips on YouTube, and I think she has her own episodes. I know there was one with Naruto himself, but I think there's like other ones where she's training crap. I honestly don't really care. So like I said in the beginning, it doesn't have the same magic as the first one, but it has its own, and depending on the person, it can be even more charming than the first one as well. Sure, Kuna's voice isn't the greatest, but she's still cute. They introduce other new characters, but they're also like closer to Avado's gang and doesn't really get the focus that Kuna gets. Technically, they're also used as a way to explain the new regions and their mindsets and how like that land works out and stuff like that. And there's two endings like the last one, but this time one is locked until like New Game Plus, and then you have to read the diary entries to enter the new route. But it doesn't make any sense why that's actually the trigger for it to happen. The decisions and the concessions Avado does would have happened in the original run anyway, so that's just kind of dumb. And it also felt like the first one had more going on in terms of like opposition, but that's more in the sense that the locked route just prevents from ever hitting that possible low points. I'd say the normal route is technically better in terms of like narrative, but I enjoyed the second run as well, just not as much. Again, it's something like the first run had more of a feeling that came from the original game, and the second run felt like something that would have been for Kuna. The epilogue got me teary-eyed, if even that's a little cheesy in what they did with it, but I liked it a lot. On a side note, there's a decent amount of hscenes. I'd have to recheck, but I think it's a lot more about like fetishes this time around. Like there's probably some in the original, but it felt like 80% this time around. It's like, holy shit. There's not much to say about the art. Honestly, Ushili is pretty consistent with its style, so it's one of those things where if you like one, you'll like them all. Sure, you might have a favorite, but overall it's good. The standout track is Infinity Knots. Technically it's the OP, but they made an instrumental version for the final map and the boss. They still fuck it up where if you go into combat, the track changes to what it's going through, but that's only if you're using the normal combat mode, and no one ever uses it because it takes too much time. Anyways, it feels like a track you'd hear for the finale of like a Ys game, especially on the older ones like Ys 1 or 2, where you're just speeding through a tower. It kind of sounds like an SH track as well, but I think that's like a more minor group maybe. Anyways, back to the game. The chapters aren't spread evenly. It makes sense for chapter 1 to be shorter, but one chapter consists of like 3 main labyrinths. There's 8 of them in total in the first 6 chapters, and it's like, dude, you put 3 of them in one chapter, holy shit. There's also this part in chapter 7 in the first route where it felt like you're going through a gauntlet. I think it's like 10 stages in total with a like little content in between, and it's just killing my pacing. They did add small challenges to them, like oh, you can't use items, or you can't use skills, or you can't use like attacks or some shit. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of there, it's fun, but overall it's like, dude, it's so much. Technically, this also happened in the second route where they split up the cast and you have to beat them with like the cast provided. But if you skip the optional maps, there's only like 4 maps in total, maybe 5 if you put the finale in there as well, right? There was also like some plot relevance between them, so it didn't drag me down that much, just it's fine. What's funny is if you actually leveled up some of your monster girls, they'd actually be useful in these maps just because your units are limited, especially if they force you to use like a unit that you barely level up throughout the chapters. I think you gain like 2 extra ones in the new route. It's like, hey, if you barely leveled them up, you're fucked. Like I never used the spirits, which is from the normal route as well. I never used them. They got fucked. It's like, oh shit. Outside of the bonding events with like Kuna, Thea, and stuff like that, my favorite part was probably like the small section, the Haste Tower, where everybody swapped bodies, but it was specifically about Thea crying that she smells now because she was sent to like Dieter's body, and Dieter's just angry because he knows it was just called being old and he didn't want to think about it. You can also feel like some of the shenanigans are happening around these chapters because like nothing's really linear. You have like, oh, you have a choice of 3 labyrinths. I think another one had like a choice of 2 labyrinths, right? And like specific characters come in different labyrinths, and the whole thing's like, hey, maybe this scene doesn't have this character because you didn't go through that one yet. So a lot of things are like, hey, this could have been funny, this could have been something with a higher joke, but didn't, because like, hey, maybe that character's not even included, so let's put them a lesser part, and that kind of sucks. But say, what can you do? The Append Content is pretty lackluster this time around. It's close to the stuff from like Kamidori, where they show characters from older games, but there's a lot less maps for it as well. It's like it's more goofy than normal, but technically so was a lot from like Sokoku as well, so like maybe not. It's more that this time around the New Game Plus content felt like something that's actually like a continuation of the plot instead of adding extra elements that diverges from the main plot. Like in Castle Meister, they unsealed this place and the Salmon Devils came back to life, so now you have to like, I think 100 days? I think it was 100 days to beat them up, and there's like some plot alongside it, and there's like a possible connection between Alvaro and Solomon, and it was a lot of cool ideas. There's just not much this time around. The thing was that they did introduce a couple maps that were pretty like above your level of the main game, but nothing really came out of it outside of this one H scene. You get the gear from like the first Loki. I think his name was like Zordon or something. The gear is okay, but it tells you that it contains his thoughts or whatever, so I equipped it and nothing happened. I tried refining and gave it to Alvaro and nothing happened. And I was like, oh, maybe it has to be for Amber. Amber's like the Loki character, right? And nothing came out of it as well. I did learn that the shoes give double action, so I guess you can pass it off to one of the monster girls that you like and it just works out fine. Overall, I'm giving this an 8, but it's like in a different lane than the 8 I gave for Castle Meister. Castle Meister was a lot more fun to play and had more going on. This one is more charming in some respects, and everything was done rather well. An easier way to say is like this one's close to a 7 and Castle Meister was closer to a 9. It's a step down in terms of like systems, and there's a lot of like this Toy Story effect where the critics said the second one was better, but a lot of the people, at least at my time, was like, yeah, it's just kind of the same, just more. But since, you know, the first one came out first, it's like, yeah, it's more novel because of it. It's charming in its own way, but it also only works for people that like that sort of plotline where it's more about the family than the adventure. On the other hand, it does give you a decent amount of both at the end of the day, and it's something I'd recommend if you wouldn't mind using a large chunk of your time for just one title. So there's not much to spoil this time around. It's more on something that I addressed in the first game in the Append Content, where I thought the idea of having some link between Solomon and Alvaro, and from what I remember, all the Solomon accessories that could only they could only be equipped by Alvaro himself, and the demons were pretty friendly with him after they defeated him. And there's one in the sequel, Vine, and though it's named Vania in the game, and the gist is that she likes Alvaro but still like a step down to Solomon because nothing was addressed, so there's like no link between them, I guess. It's nothing important, but it was something cool that could have been stayed hidden, or like just here and there. It's like a code, yes, things like, is he alive, is he not? It was like, it's interesting, and this was like, fuck it. Technically, there's like another character that was called like the Queen of Sheba that was also into Solomon. I think they got like married or whatever in this version, and then they had to separate or whatever. And there was no like plot thread with Alvaro on that either. Like she was like, oh, I feel some energy from him. It's like, no, there's nothing. Vania also has like almost no extra scenes outside of the actual plot. It's honestly pretty sad. It feels like a lot of content dried up by the end, and that makes sense for the old characters. They already handled like in chapter 3, 4, and 5. But the Full Girl got most of the attention when it could have been divvied up better. You only get like one more scene with the Dark Spirit, and that's because Full was already there too. You get like 2 scenes with Vania when she could have been used a lot for like a lot of cool like world building night scenes and whatever. It was like, it's nothing. Honestly, the last character reveal was pretty funny. I get what they're going for and like it makes sense retroactively, but I was also waiting for the Loki grandpa to betray the team the whole time. Like his name is on point, Sacrifice Loki. His attention was always like to learn new shit and go even higher in what could be done with magic, but ended up with him being like a good dude. I mean, he's still an asshole overall outside of like when something's about magic, but I guess he keeps it barely legal. Like, if it was legal to stab you to get like some kind of magic experiment to go through, he'd do it. Fuck it. But yeah, he was fine. I liked him a lot. I just thought he would betray you halfway through. I guess they didn't want to go with that because like, hey, the first guy from the original game already betrayed you. Even though it was super obvious, like they weren't trying to hide it that time around. And it's like, nah, we're not gonna do it again. I think they even have this like the same skin tone. It's like, they're like, nah, it's fine. We're not doing it. But yeah, that's basically it. I still liked it. I like the first one more. I also think the first one was longer, so maybe that's a thing. But it's also like, it was new, and this one's like, oh, I saw the same character, so it gets kind of screwed because of that anyways. So, what can you do?